Hey, everybody, fellow investors and capital raisers and apartment syndicators. It is an honor to get to share with you today what I can that I hope will be very helpful to you in the way of getting a podcast launched and off the ground. I'll just start with sharing with you kind of my original why behind starting a podcast, right? So, if you're anything like me, you're in a position of wanting to scale your business up and raise capital to do more deals, right? So if you are coached by somebody like Mr. Adam Adams or Corey Peterson and others, they will tell you to start a podcast or to start a meetup group or to write a book or to start some sort of thought leadership platform. The reason why I wanted to start the podcast, quite frankly, was to raise capital. That was the why for me, right? And that's an okay why. Like, that's the reason why we do a lot of things in this business is to raise capital or to find deals or to get, to get to the next step. So, and once again, if you're anything like if you are in a position where you're considering starting a podcast or you're looking at it for the first time, you might be thinking a lot of the things that I was thinking, which are along the lines of, I'm not talented enough. I say way too often, which I will certainly say in this presentation one too many times. And there was a lot of stories that I had of that it was just going to be too much work, that I couldn't hang with the big boys. It was just, the Coreys and the Adams and the Michael Blancs and the Joe Fairlesses, like those guys that do the podcast so well, they've done so much more business than me, and they're so much further along than me, and they're just more talented than me, and maybe they're better looking than me, and et cetera, right? So, like I was up against that, and I was up against not feeling like I could get it in my schedule, like it was going to be way too time consuming. I'll tell you how I overcame that in a minute. And so you're going to find yourself dealing with lots of these hesitations, and everybody that's ever started a podcast, I guarantee you, has had hesitations about it. I certainly did. So what changed, right? Well, when you go under the tutelage of a mentor, you are either insane or you do what they tell you to do, right? So if they're telling you to do stuff and you're not doing it, that's what I mean by maybe you're not insane, maybe you're just spinning your wheels, but you're either doing what they're telling you to do and working the program wax on, wax off, or you're not. And then I signed up for Mr. Corey Peterson's course because Corey, I just really resonated with at the time, and was really excited about what Corey had to offer, particularly in the way of capital raising. So I signed up for his mastermind group and coaching program, and basically during that program, he looks at all of us, and there's like 15 of us there, right? And he goes, every single one of you should have a podcast, period. Plain and simple. Like, you pay me a lot of money to come here and teach you. I'm telling you to have a podcast. I have a podcast. I'm telling you it's helped me, been a huge part of making me who I am and making me able to raise capital the way that I have been. You should have it too. That to me was it. Like, that was the final moment. So shout out real quick to Corey. Hopefully this will work out. Maybe not with the green screen. There it is. Copy Your Way to Success by Corey Peterson. That's what we're doing. We're copying our way to success right now. Listening to people, learning from each other, learning from the people that have had the success that we're trying to get. We're copying it. And that's what we're doing right now by talking about starting a podcast, which is nothing new, right? A lot of people have started podcasts, and there's a whole conversation about, well, why should I if there's already so many podcasts out there? And I'll just say that's it's just not even productive questioning or thinking, because you are your own voice. You're your own authority. You have every right to have a platform, and you should have a platform. And your platform will get listened to when you work the program and do it right. So that's when I decided to start a podcast. Was when Corey in our mastermind group said everybody here should do one. It was the final kick in the butt that I needed. I had a friend at the time in the program who wanted to also start a podcast. We decided to start one together. We called it The Apartment Guys. Still have it. It's called The Apartment Guys. We're no longer partnering on the podcast. What we found was that it just worked. It's really a kind of a solopreneur venture. I think a podcast is. It's like a personality thing as much as anything else. And it's working. Having a 2-person podcast work out well is rare. So I love my partner, fantastic person and a great colleague. But I'm doing the podcast by myself. I'm now the apartment guy. Well, let me tell you what happened for me next. It was something I didn't expect. I actually started to get really excited because once I made the commitment to do it, I started thinking about who I was going to have, questions I was going to ask, topics we were going to cover, what the intro was going to sound like, how people were going to feel when they listened to it, important things that I was going to try to get across, and ways that I was going to try to help people. And I just got super stoked. What I started to feel like kind of called forth to be a new version of me inside of this apartment syndication investment space, right? Because when you're a teacher and a speaker and an author or a podcast host or a meetup group host, you're in a position of leadership and you're in a position of influence, and you get to help people. You get to be a contribution to people. And so it brings forth your A game, you know? It makes you want to be your best. And so as we started preparing to launch the podcast, for me, it really took on a life of its own as far as the excitement level. And we started to book guests, and we recorded about 6 episodes and launched with about 6 episodes, which is not the way that Adam teaches you to do it at all. And I would recommend doing it the way that Adam teaches you to do it. I'll go over a few things that I would do differently here in a minute, and I'll just say that's one of them. I would record more episodes before launching. That's a brilliant idea right there. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One thing that I did that's different that I've never heard anybody else talk about is I wrote a mission statement for the podcast. I'm a big believer in mission statements. I think you should have one for your personal life. I think you should have a life mission statement. If you don't have one, consider writing one. I think you should have a mission statement for your business. I think you should have a mission statement for your primary relationship, if you have one. And for something like a podcast that's just got a massive intellectual quality to it, and is, like I said, in a position of influence, having a mission statement that guides the overall theme of what I'm doing and helps guide me in my choices and my decision making about the podcast and what I'm asking, what kind of discussions we're generating, what kind of guests I'm having, what topics we're discussing, what's important to me. So that became super important, was to become oriented to my mission and my mission statement. And the mission of the podcast is educate, uplift, and inspire anybody that is interested in what we're talking about, and anybody that wants to elevate themselves in their career. I'll just share with you real quick the big why for me behind multifamily entrepreneurship is personal development. Like that, to me, it's like such a fertile space to develop and grow as a person and as a business person. Just to write a mission statement, and it can be as simple as to to entertain and to make people smile and laugh, make people happy, to make people financially independent, bring people towards financial independence. My guest pool, I will say, is expert enough that I can make the claim that between collectively, there's a knowledge of just about everything that needs to be known to be very, very successful in real estate. And that's just my podcast. That's a tiny drop in the bucket. Adam talks a lot about identifying your avatar. I did that. My avatar, quite simply, is somebody about my age, late 40s, been working for 20 years, 25 years, saving up in the stock market, plays golf, has kids that are 15 years old, skis once a year, likes to fly fish, and lives in Washington, D.C. It's my avatar, okay? I don't know why Washington, D.C. Could live in Salt Lake City, Utah, because I have a lot of avatars or investors that live in Salt Lake. So, and then the other thing that I did after developing the avatar was that I decided to self-produce the whole thing myself. Meaning I went and got the logo done. I got the website done. I figured out where I was going to publish. I bought the equipment to record. I bought the microphones, the Zoom recorder, the 4-track mixer. I downloaded DaVinci Resolve, which I use to mix the program with. It's free software for video editing, and you can use it very, very nicely for podcast editing. And I made the decision to learn everything that I needed to know what happened at every step of the process and getting the podcast from the microphone to the listener's ear. Would I recommend that to everybody? No, I wouldn't. In fact, Adam has an awesome service that he'll be talking about that basically takes your raw audio, your raw video, and turns it into a podcast. Does everything from the show notes, editing, transcriptions, thumbnails, promo material, offers a lot. And don't quote me on all those things, but it is a very complete service, and it's very affordable, and we're going to be switching over to that here very soon. I've just opted this first year to do self-production because I want to be really, really tight on my editing. I want to be producing the podcast with editing in mind, and since I'm the one editing, I know what that means. If that makes any sense. It's just an approach that I chose to take, and like I said, it's not necessarily for everybody. The most important thing is that you do it, right? So the most important thing is you don't get hung up on, do I do DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Pro, or do I do the editing myself? Do I outsource it to a VA? The simplest thing is to call Adam, quite frankly, and then just start recording your podcast episodes. But as far as one shot production, that's the best option that I know of, is Adam's option. What should I have done differently? Well, let me tell you, first of all, let me tell you how it's gone. So I'm 18 episodes into it, and I've had I've had Adam on, I've had Neil Bawa on, I've had Stephen Pesavento on, I've had Travis Watts on, I've had some really, Monica Sawyer, Monique Halm, Emma Powell, Matt Snade. I've had some really amazing, rock star level people in the space. Corey Peterson's going to be on next week. And it has been so fun, guys. And if there's one thing you take away from my presentation today, it's that this has been so much more fun than I ever thought it would be. And I mean that from my heart. I have a blast doing this podcast, and I love it. I truly love it. The level of discussion that we're able to get into on almost every episode is so cool. It's so high level, and it gives me a chance to spend almost an hour with really high level go-getters that are doing it, that have thousands of units under management. The Sterling Whites of the world, high visibility thought leaders, authors, just getting it done. But the podcast has given me this creative outlet that is so, like I said, high level and makes me feel good because number one, on a selfish level, I'm educating myself. I get to ask, it's like a custom educational course. You get to ask your heroes how they do what they do. Think about that. You get to ask your mentors, the people you look up to, the people that you see speak at a conference in front of 500 people. You get to talk to them one-on-one for an hour yourself on a podcast. It is freaking cool. And guess what? They're bringing their A game. They make it super easy because they're good guests. Almost, if you're booking well, you're getting really good guests. And they've done this before, most of them, and some of them have done it. Anna Myers was one of my favorite episodes. Getting to host her and basically just teeing up a question, it doesn't even have to be a real great question or even all that eloquently asked. But wow, it's like somebody like her will just take the discussion and evolve it, massage it, and make it into this really cool thing. And for me, it's almost like a work of art. Like there's almost an art to this, to doing this. So that to me is the biggest thing that I've gotten out of this is joy and enjoyment, like fulfillment. As far as traction and like tangible rubber meets the road results so far, it's hard to know. I think, people do identify me now as somebody that has a podcast that I think in and of itself, like kind of like being an author, just by virtue of being an author, you're, people think of you a little differently. Like, I think there's something like that with podcasts as well. Like just people in the industry maybe think I've been asked to be on a few podcasts and that sort of thing. So some visibility, some exposure. As far as like brand raising, I am really just starting to incorporate brand promotion into my podcast. This is the one thing. The other number two is if I could go back and do one thing differently, I would have had a lead magnet in place with ClickFunnels and a CRM and automated email. I'm building all that right now. I'm about to launch it. And I really think that you ought to have that in place when you launch so that you have something, a platform that you can direct people to when they want to learn more about you. And to have it be streamlined and automated and the way that I just said, it went through, again, lead magnet, whether that's a downloadable brochure, book, ebook, whatever it is, something free, get on the email list. Boom, you got their email list, you got their contact info. They go into your CRM, they go into your automated email, active campaign or whatever, MailChimp, and then that's how you start doing business. That is something that I wish I had in place. Michael Blanc teaches you to do that. He teaches you to build that platform, that system, that back end, if you will, for your landing page, and have that in place so that it's working for you when you're out doing your podcast. I'm just now starting to promote the landing page, and wish I had started doing that sooner. So that's a big takeaway for me. Recording more episodes beforehand, big takeaway. Another huge takeaway, Adam teaches you to call your friends, have them leave you ratings and reviews, ideally 5-star ratings. Huge, guys, that's huge. I didn't do that well. So the visibility of my podcast isn't where it could be because I didn't do it as well as I could have. Again, these are things I'm working on and making up for, and I'm happy to be doing so. Nothing's perfect. So I'll just end with this. You guys got to do it. You got to get past whatever hang up it is that's keeping you from doing it, and plow through it. It doesn't take as much time as you think. It takes a lot of intention. Takes some love and some like TLC and some nurturing. It takes a lot of time if you're doing the editing yourself. But for me, what I found to be the most challenging, amazingly, has been booking my guests. Like, I'm actually going to be sourcing that out to an assistant. I can be reached at Greenlight Equity Group. My website is glequitygroup.com. I'd love to connect with you, and all the best, blessings, and all of your pursuits and ventures.